Hey guys, super good to be here with you. Thanks, Maciej. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Hope you've enjoyed the summer school, and to those of you who made it to our drinks yesterday, thanks a lot for that. Hope you had a good time. We definitely did have a great time with you. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. Before I ask the panelists to join me here, I will have one question and one quick comment. A question: do we have any founders or aspiring founders in the audience? Could you just raise your hand so we could? Cool, that's great. We'll adjust the topics and the conversation. That's great. It's more than I expected. Great news, great information. The second comment, I guess you know about Slido in the live section. I will be keeping a close track of like whatever questions arise there. I'm gonna try to just blend them in the conversation. So feel free to drop any questions you like. If convenient, I will blend them in. If not, we'll have a quick Q&A question at the end of the panel. So yeah, those are two questions. Could I please have all the panelists join me here? Yeah, can we have a round of applause, please? Yes, just go ahead. Hey, it's easy. Okay, so let's kick it off with a quick round of introductions. I guess I will just briefly start with myself. I'm one of the partners of Cropt Ventures. I've been investing for the past 8 years, mostly in B2B software companies. Before my Credo context, I've been investing all across Europe and B2B software companies at Pre-seed and Seed. Now at Credo, I'm one of the partners responsible for mostly the Polish market and the diaspora founders. So I basically travel a lot to London, to San Francisco, like main tech hubs in Europe, to meet founders from Poland, from Czech Republic, from Romania, from Hungary, Serbia, from that part of the world, starting global businesses. So that's briefly about me. Can you just maybe start with you? Go ahead.
Yeah, so hi, thank you all for being here. My name is Jelena Zorić, and I work as a lead data analyst at Cropt. So I'm not a founder, but since I started working at this company about a year after it was founded, I'm kind of close to one. So I will try to give you my experience of more working in a startup. My background is in computer engineering. I went to the Faculty of Technical Sciences right here in Novi Sad, and I started working in Cropt shortly after that. And it has been an interesting ride so far, so looking forward to speaking with you. Yes, of course, what I forgot to say is a bit about Cropt. What we do is we apply AI in agriculture. So we do stuff like yield predictions, like crop classification, and so on and so on. Yeah.
My name is Nikola Mrkšić. I'm CEO and one of the co-founders of PolyAI. We're at this point a global enterprise software company. We build voice assistants for customer service. And we started, my co-founders here, we started off as a spin-off from the University of Cambridge. So I guess relative to that presentation, we started off with technical risk, spent a few years. I was kind of admiring the milestones because I feel like maybe what wasn't said in the previous talk is that if you've got really good research behind you, you get to maybe borrow from the future a bit. So yeah, I think like what maybe can be added to the previous talk is if you've got good technology, like you're actually able to borrow a bit from the future and work on a hard problem for a long time. Our journey has been much about that, right? For about 3 years, we were just building a voice assistant that people would actually enjoy talking to. And now, if you think about like automated things you hear on the phone, other than like press 1 for that and 2 for that, right? It's really interesting. There was one company in the history of technology called Nuance that did this in America. There's a lot of automated voice in America, and people really hate it. And then, like, being Serbian, I've never interacted with one on the phone in Serbia. But not just Serbia, you've never interacted or have barely interacted with these things in French and German and these large economies, right? So the thing that was kind of funny to me is I had a great privilege of doing my PhD at Cambridge when deep learning was taking off, and I was in a group with a guy who worked on machine learning methods for dialogue systems for about 10 years at that point. So he had the premonition to think that technology would catch up. So we were in the right place, right time. We started building things that were amazing, and you know, the research community was responding. We were like publishing great papers, getting a lot of citations, and they were like, you guys are visionaries, you're changing the world. But then, like, you know, one of our companies, I worked as the first employee at a company called Vocal IQ. We got acquired by Apple. And whenever I told people I work at Siri, they would just look me in the eyes and go like, well, Siri is shit. I'd be like, okay. You don't know I'm Serbian. Most Serbs would react very differently to that approach. So to me, it was like, if we're actually going to take this technology, it goes down to that third piece that, I forget the name, that Maciek talked about, right? Where it's like, you need to get into these ecosystems. You need to find a way to distribute that technology to the world, right? And that's what we're about. At this point, we've raised around $120 million. We have offices in London, New York, and now in Belgrade as well. So for us, we're really working to change the way that people feel about voice assistants by helping companies be the best version of themselves in every interaction, by talking to things that are so good and human-like that you don't really have to think about whether they're a human or an AI.
Thank you.
Sorry for the long intro.
It's fine. It's good for Alex.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I'm Alex from ElevenLabs. Maciek talked a bit about us, so I'll skip the main intro, but we're an AI, audio, research, and software company. At ElevenLabs, I wear two hats. So on the one hand, I run our voices team, which is everything from how do we license voices from voice actors, how do we create products that allow people to share and monetize their voices. And I also run our data and corporate development team, so how do we license data to help us train our models, and how do we partner with other companies in the industry to help bring new products to life. So yeah, that's what I do. And fun fact, in a past life, I worked with Maciek and Maciej at Credo as well. So yeah.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? I'm Đorđe. I'm one of the co-founders of SignAvatar. First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me. Where's Pero? Pero, thanks for inviting me. Really glad to be here in front of all you guys. I'm really looking forward to meet some of you. Please reach out after this. Really looking forward. SignAvatar is making AI that turns speech into sign language automatically, and we're using it to make the world's first accessible PA system. So we're automating all the audible announcements on the airports to be accessible in sign language in 2 different languages in text and displayed on screens around terminals so that deaf people don't miss any crucial announcements. Looking forward to speak a little bit today. I'm going to be answering some questions, and that's it for the intro.
I'll try this one. Is this working? Hi. Hi everyone, I'm Anna. I'm co-founder and CEO of Cascade. We're a generative AI company for employee support automation in HR and benefits specifically. So many of the companies here, maybe they're in the infrastructure or horizontal AI space, and I know there's some questions about that. We're a vertical AI application company. My personal background, I'm originally from Romania. I'm super excited to chat with everyone who's here and an aspiring founder from Romania or anywhere else in Eastern Europe. When I was at home in Romania, I was like competing in physics and astrophysics Olympiads. Like you're probably very familiar with the system being from this part of the world as well. I studied computer science at Harvard, and then I worked at Microsoft for 5 or 6 years in the Azure Core AI group specifically, so building machine learning platforms at scale, large-scale distributed systems powered by AI for optimization and identifying cost savings opportunities for Microsoft and the Azure cloud. And 2 years ago, in light of the shift that we're seeing in the market from traditional deep learning models into generative AI, I left Microsoft together with my co-founder and CTO over there, Pulak, and we started Cascade. Happy to chat about early stage startups, about the experience of being a founder, about fundraising, finding product market fit, scaling both product and commercial and GTM functions. And thanks a lot for having me here.
I hope you can hear me. Michael Bronstein, well, you heard me already in the morning. So I'm a computer science professor. I was born in Russia, grew up in Israel. So I've been, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I did my undergraduate studies, so I've been exposed to some of my classmates taking some cool stuff that they've been doing in the lab, making it to a commercial, successful business, and sometimes turning millionaires overnight and being the subject of newspaper headlines. So I've seen many such cases and role models. So I guess it helps a little bit to be interested in startups. So I did a few startups myself, 2 successful exits, a couple of failures, invested in several companies, invested also through VC, been on the other side advising venture capitals as well, also advising several startup companies. So I guess I've seen it from different perspectives. Yeah, and we'll be happy to tell about my experience.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Whoa.
Yeah, maybe we can just move.
Thanks, guys. So I guess we all can agree that it's been quite a crazy year in AI. Plenty of insane developments. OpenAI chasing AGI, Ilya leaving to start Safe Superintelligence, like all the main research labs launching their own foundation models like every day, basically. Some of the companies have gotten to like insane revenue levels in record time. So quite an eventful last 12 to 18 months, if you will. Do you guys have like if you were to choose one important moment in AI, in machine learning, over the last, say, 12, 18 months, what would it be? What were you excited about? And could we maybe start with Michael this time around, and let's come back.
Sure. So I think, well, I'm interested at least in this commercial domain. I'm interested in what generally falls under the umbrella of AI for science, in particular in life sciences and biological sciences, drug discovery, drug development. So I think there has been a lot of excitement. Just a few months ago, AlphaFold 3 was announced. Before that, there was an announcement of crazy investment of $1 billion into a company that spun out of RF diffusion from David Baker's lab. So probably an amount sufficient to take it all the way to the clinic. So that's, I would say, unprecedented investment for a startup company, at least in this field. Many interesting things. So new startups from Max Welling for material design, for carbon capture, for climate. So quite similar methods and problems to what we use in drug discovery. Big deals announcement with pharma companies, so interesting startups, well, including one I'm involved in, basically multi-billion contracts for developing new drugs. So I think it's hard to point to a single particular event, but I would say that the space is, in this domain is very hot. There are very interesting technologies, both on the machine learning side and experimental side, and I think it will be a combination of these that will be winning.
So an interesting observation I have from the past year, or maybe like a year and a half, basically since LLM started making a lot of hype in the market, is that it's the first time that I'm seeing the general public starting to be aware about AI. For us, and probably everyone in this room, we've spent our whole school years and education thinking and working in this field, so it all just seems like a natural step forward. But for the majority of the public, that's when I feel like the past 12 months is when they've started to wake up, oh wow, this is like real. It's super interesting to see there are two camps of people. There's the enthusiasts, and you see people living in the AGI houses in San Francisco and all of that, who think that AI is going to save the world. And then there's the pessimists and the people who are super scared, and this is going to destroy humanity. So it's been interesting for us as a vertical AI company to really think critically about use cases and to think about how can we truly apply this technology, and the market opportunity is so large. I think the landscape is starting to wake up to the application layer, which is super interesting because if you think about cloud and digitization, there's been an explosion in apps in the 2010 plus years, and I think that is just starting to happen in the world of AI now. I was at NeurIPS in December last year, and I remember someone was saying in one of the presentations that the infrastructure and dev tools space is very crowded right now, and I think that's also because of the very technical, like deeply technical nature of the software that we're building. And it takes time to identify business models for specific application layers and verticals so that you can own the entire end-to-end scenario, for which it's important to be acutely aware of scaling a very strong business model. It's a huge economic opportunity, and the market is very dynamic in that regard. There are many funds that have, top AI application contests every year, and you see like 50% of the names stay, many of them disappear. So I think that's, right now, that's what I find very exciting in the industry, the fact that it's just a super fun time to scale an AI company. The market is very, very dynamic, It will be super interesting to see how the landscape continues to evolve in the next couple of years.
Well, I'm kind of more of a product guy, so I'll just say the thing that amazed me the most. I'm a big music guy, so I don't know if you guys tried Suno AI or something like that. It's really amazing how many songs you can make with just text. So if you haven't seen it, try it out.
You have to try ElevenLabs music model.
Okay, sure. This is the only one I've seen. And it's like I never used it myself. I just heard songs, and then it was like, oh, this is AI generated. Nice, because you get a random song that you already know, and it feels completely different. It's a different song. To me, that was amazing. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, so I think we're only, 18 months since ChatGPT came out, and it's easy to forget that. I think the most exciting thing for me was OpenAI published their annual results recently, and when you look into those numbers, you realize the scale of adoption of these tools, right? These are not toys, these are not things that people are speculating on. Like OpenAI does $2 billion of ARR on consumer subs, so people paying $5, $10, $20 a month for AI. That's great. Shows you there's a humongous community of individuals out there. They also do another $500 million, I think, in enterprise. So I think now really the last 12 months is when we've moved from people thinking about AI to people pulling out the checkbook for AI and really kind of integrating it properly into their products. So I think seeing the scale of someone like OpenAI and the market education they're doing, that's probably been the most exciting for us.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. 18 months, right? And enterprise revenue always lags, so that $500 million will dwarf the consumer piece. And I think for us what's been interesting is just, as we started, we were in a world where we were convincing people that, hey, we'll have this really human-like thing, do a large part of what you do in the contact center. And, as ChatGPT really started making waves and permeating into the general public, and people are having an understanding that something big is brewing and happening, these boardrooms started going from the contact center wants to buy AI, haha, idiots, go back to how would you know what good AI is, right? It went from, why are you not being more ambitious? Why are we starting with 100,000 when we could start with 1.5 million, right? And do something a lot more ambitious. So we've seen a lot of companies where, we've had conversations and speculative conversations for years, just kind of go all in right now. So the other thing that is striking for me is I remember I think everyone here probably remembers their ChatGPT moment, right? And I was getting into a conversation where, it was a 5-step deductive step, and I remember, how hard that always was as an NLP problem, and I'm like, this thing has just completely dishonored all the work done on it by just like working, right? And at that point you kind of flip, but it takes quite a lot of preparation working on the previous thing to just understand the extent of the improvement and what happened, right? So the world, you walk around Novi Sad today and stuff, like, 1 in 2 people is not profoundly thinking about what AI will do to their life, but it will have a very profound impact on everyone in probably about 5 to 10 years' time. So I think about that a lot, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, because it's going very slowly, and then it will go really fast. Because even these numbers that are big compared to the global economy, they're still small. But like, give it like 3 years of exponential growth, and you've got a new cloud provider, right?
Yes, so for me, it's definitely the seeping of AI into the general public and, into our everyday lives. Because as I already said, my company works in agriculture. So as you all know, agriculture is a domain that's kind of slow to take in these types of new technologies. There's lots of fear around them. How accurate can they be? Will they replace some manual jobs, and so on and so on. And I think with people in the general public starting to use AI in their daily lives, I think that we're kind of gaining more trust. Of course, apart from trust, there's also the, doomsday scenarios and stuff like that. But I think that we're on a path to make AI more trustworthy, more transparent in a way, and I think that that's also a good thing for these types of industries that are more traditional and slower to take in innovation.
Cool, great. Thanks for that. So we assess like plenty of AI companies these days, and like we see dozens of decks every week. And like the way we think about it is like we categorize companies in 2 buckets when it comes to like what their core activity actually is. And we we see research labs who are like fully focused on like researching, translating science into code and pushing the boundaries of like what's possible in AI. And the companies that are productizing it, right? There's very, very few companies out there that we've seen that manage to be both an infrastructure and application layer at the same time. Like those rare species exist, but like there's very few of them. So could you maybe briefly tell us all like what is how would you kind of describe your company that you represent here? Are you more on the research side or on the application layer? And then we'll take the conversation from this point on. Can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So what we do primarily is that we heavily rely on research because Cropt was actually founded as a spin-off company from the Biosense Institute. What the people at Biosense already did in research terms, we try to now give to a broader general public. Still, even as a separate company, we have a very tight connection with the Institute. We work all the time with their researchers, and this is really an integral part of our everyday workflow. But of course, apart from this, we try to make all this research as commercially available as possible. So I would say that we do heavily rely on research, but that we are kind of maybe even in the middle of these 2 categories.
Before we move on, like I just wanted to remind about Slido situation. If you could just, if you have any questions, yeah, feel free.
Cool. Well, I think for us, we started off as, 3 PhD students. So we thought we would be a research company, and we had a lot of differentiated stuff. Over time, we've become a complete application layer company. We've, bought 20 shirts like these and stopped, started talking to clients instead of reading papers, right? We still have a lot of proprietary stuff, but then the advantage over time, that initial research advantage, a model advantage or whatnot, that dissipates, right? It gets commoditized, and then what you're left with is data, right? So at this point, we take close to 1 million phone calls a day, right? With a highly conversational voice assistant. Now that thing is gold, right? Because that is the moat, right? The second bit of the moat that is far less sexy is, we now know the value proposition of a voice assistant for a casino or for a large bank or an insurer or a large logistics company, right? We have their APIs, their integrations. We've spent years consuming different APIs and just, building a product that's really valuable to them. So I think it's really interesting to think about AI products. Either you're fortunate to be a research lab kind of place which has a consumer product that is, an API or not, an app of some kind. That's great. People have always loved B2C, and this is not AI specific, in that you get to have a lot of really good people. When the whole thing works, you take a pot of cash, you put it into marketing, it grows your revenue, and things are good, right? Now, AI does a lot of work, right? I heard someone compare it to on-prem software, and I'm it's not that different, because it's not so much the tuning of the model as much as it's finding a way for AI to be very productive for a specific company, right? To do a lot of work on behalf of that company and its employees, right? So when you want to do something like that, you have to kind of dig in and spend a lot of time working with them. It's still SaaS, it's still consumption-based, so it has everything you need to command high valuations, but you must account for the thing that you're doing, exactly how you're going to deliver, right? And I think in that you build your moat, and a lot of it is data, and a lot of it is just learning about your customers. It's
Processes.
any other B2B software company, right? So
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so we're definitely a research and a product company, intentionally so. I think we started, the whole sort of core value of the business, like you talked about earlier, and how I think, which is still the case today, was the research advantage we had on the rest of the market. So, we do think that we have the best text-to-speech and voice cloning in the world, and we do think that we have at least let's say, a year or two advantage on the rest of the market in terms of research. And that's definitely a core, belief of the company, is that we have to keep that for as long as possible to sort of maintain our value. At the same time, we realize that you can't capture all of the value of a market doing only research. You have to give customers products, and you have to, actually start selling things. And so we do, the whole software org on top is there as well. But I think the balance between those two things is, we don't have a perfect solution yet, but that's kind of the $1 million question and $1 trillion question in AI is, how much do you invest in one or the other, right? Think about OpenAI as probably the biggest champion of this, where they were a research lab only for a while. People started building wrappers on top of their models. There were a couple of companies that got to 100 million in revenue in 6 months using GPT. And then OpenAI woke up and said, wait, we can also put products in the hands of people and make a bunch of money. So I think this dance between research and product is something all of the best AI companies will be doing. We certainly will. There will be some date in the future where all of the model capabilities converge, and it's more about product and workflows and customer relationships and stuff, but there's still a long period of time ahead of us where research will matter.
Yeah, is this cool? So we actually have a really interesting way. So we began as let's say a research company. So our initial idea was to make a universal sign language translator, which could probably translate anything, like maybe this panel or Netflix or whatever. So we just started doing that. That was the initial idea. But on the way, we kind of found out that we're going to need 5 to 10 years to do it. And the research is at that point. I don't know if you guys know, but sign language is not universal. Who knows that sign language is not universal? Okay, pretty good, honestly. Good crowd. So we kind of found out that we would need many data sets, and there's not a lot of them available. So we kind of need to do our own data set, which is done with a motion capture suite, and that takes a lot of time, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of, because that's what startup life is, we kind of switched more into product. We're like, okay, this is a research project. We're not University of Cambridge to have millions of dollars to support that. We're a small startup company from Serbia, which is a huge disadvantage, but more in that layer. So we switched more into product. We talked to our customers, or in this case, our users. We found out that transport is a huge problem for deaf people. Announcements are a huge problem for them. So we just started digging into that one. And now we completely focus on that one to try and build the product, to move fast, to get revenue, get customers, stuff like that. So research is going to go back again once we start earning enough money to have an AI team. So out of 5 guys in my company, 4 of them are AI guys, so I'm the only one who's not an AI dude. So research is going to come back in once we have enough revenue and enough traction to basically have a research team inside of our startup. So kind of right now we're more of a product than a research company, but our underlying, like our vision is to make that universal translator. It's just that research and our funding has to align to have that in like the backlog right now and just sell as fast as possible with our current product.
So can I have a follow-up question here? So
Sure.
Why do you even care to be a research company? Like you can rely on somebody else's research for now? Like this doesn't exist, or like why even bother?
Yeah. So this is kind of a super niche problem that we're solving. So I don't know if you guys know, I'll just do brief intro why AI is super hard to crack in sign language. So if you wanted to say like a lamp is on a desk, there's not a translation like lamp is on a desk. So look at me. So you show a desk here, a lamp on it. So it's kind of like there's not an algorithm that can do it. You just need to train it a lot. So to do this properly, to be a research company, you need like a lot of things, and nobody does it. Not like we only have a small amount of competitors, and actually our only competitor that I believe that's a competitor, they're doing stable diffusion, which we believe that our research behind it says that that's not going to be the case. Because I don't know if you guys know, like Midjourney, it struggles with 2 things. That's fingers and face. And that's pretty much the only thing that you need is sign language. So that's why we care about being a research company or have a research team, because not a lot of people are going into this space.
There's actually people in the crowd researching it. Yeah.
I've actually heard. We're going to talk after, so. All good. Sure.
So there is a company called SignAvatar.
Yeah, they're our only competitor, which I believe in.
They're not doing stable diffusion, they're doing GANs.
What they're doing?
GANs.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I know, thanks.
Okay, I can go next. So I think it's really important to have both a very strong, technical foundation, academic foundation, and then really deeply understand your market and be able to scale the business model. We're a vertical AI company, like an application layer company, and I think an advantage of being an app layer company is that it's really important to know your customer and to build product for a specific customer. That helps a lot, with solving that like 10x, coming up with a 10x better solution and having deep ecosystem integrations and building the whole UX UI, like the model at the end of the day is just one component of the entire platform. But this being said, given the speed of new models and the speed of the entire field right now in AI, having a strong technical and research foundation is super important so that you can make sure that you're always at the forefront of innovation, and no matter who else comes, and especially, so in times like this, like paradigm shift technologies, it's all super exciting, it's a lot of fun, the market is very dynamic. At the end of the day, whoever wins in a specific category is who runs fastest in these first couple of years, right? And so to run fastest in this next, in the time in which we are right now, you need to keep expanding and get as much market share as you can. And so unfortunately, you can't really spend time with limited resources because it's important, like the frugality mindset in a startup as well. You don't really have time to publish research and that's a very time-intensive process when you need to continuously like ship product fast, fail fast, keep addressing a pain point that's really big for your users. And how you do that really matters, right? Like I was talking with my team the other day, like 15 years ago when the cloud was just getting started, people thought that HubSpot is just a wrapper around databases, but they build an amazing company, right? So that's kind of the mindset that we have. This being said, our team, our core team, comes from big tech, and before starting Cascade, when I was at Microsoft, my team was half engineering and half research, and the first time, like when I quit Microsoft exactly 2 years ago to start Cascade, immediately I was thinking, oh, we should publish, we should apply for patents. But then you realize, no, we need to run fast, like we need to go in order to really be category leaders. So it's a lot of fun, and happy to chat more about it if anyone has questions.
Yeah, so about myself, I think I consider myself an academic researcher. So I think in academia we tend to be sometimes to work on exotic things, right? Because they're interesting and because why not? So I think it's fair to say that we work on solutions and then look for real-world problems that these solutions solve, right? And I think, well, I know a few people who can look at it from the other perspective, but typically academics are not good at looking first for the problems and then to find solutions. And these solutions are not necessarily the smartest and the most sophisticated research. So it happens, I think, another thing to realize, we are in love with the research that we do, and we think that the technology that we do is the greatest, but it's not that important. So I think there is this maxim saying that research, right, or particular technology is responsible for 20% of success and 80% of failure. So if it doesn't work, you will almost certainly fail. But a successful company, it's not only research or technology, right? So it's the right time and the right place and the right product market fit. So overall, I think it's very depressing in some sense for academics, right? For academic researchers to understand that basically there are many other things besides what we are trained and enjoy most to do that are necessary for making a successful business. Now, I should say that I still remember times when most startups didn't do any academic style research, so not publishing, so it was considered a distraction, revealing your secrets. I think the situation is very different now, so you want actually to use the AI or machine learning community to show the world that you're the greatest and the coolest team, right? And you also want to build credibility. You also want to use it as a vehicle to attract top talent. So I consider it to be very important. But yeah, so there is, it's probably an important and maybe sometimes necessary component, but not sufficient. I would probably formulate it like this.
But I understand that, like, apart from the academic research, there's also like an applied research, right? So, like, do you guys do that, or?
Of course we do. Well, and I spent many years in the big tech, so with 2 exits. So one was to Intel, so I spent almost 8 years at Intel, and 4 years at Twitter afterwards, another startup that we sold. So you often realize that what you want to work on is not necessarily what is the business is interested in, and there are many constraints, right? So in social media, for example, there are all sorts of constraints that your crazy and mathematically beautiful ideas are not even a non-starter, right? So you need to constrain yourself to some things that might be trivial from the scientific standpoint, but they're important and they're really the only possible solution. So we talked today about graph neural networks. So what you can implement at scale and with the latency that is possible in a social network really restricts a lot your architectural choices, for example. So maybe specifically to the companies I'm currently involved. So I'm chief scientist at VantAI, which is a molecular glue design company. So it's exciting therapeutic modality in drug design. So we also work on basically on developing assets. So we work with pharma partners, and there, of course, the considerations are very different. So it's not only publishing this cool generative model for molecules; it's actually to make it work in the lab and eventually in the clinic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something that I'd like to add is if you come from like a strong research technical background, I think it may be intimidating to leave that environment that you're very familiar with behind and start a company, because it's a very intense thing that you're going to do. There are a lot of communities and a lot of programs associated with universities that provide resources for researchers and for students to start companies. Some of them take equity, but many of them don't. And I think it's important that we talk about them. A couple of programs that we've benefited from, there's a community called CDL, Creative Destruction Lab. It's originally started by the University of Toronto Business School, but they have chapters all over the world. They have chapters in Europe as well. You don't need to be from a specific country in order to apply. You just apply with an idea, and you participate in the program. It's a year-long program. You benefit from mentorship. They help you set goals for the business and really think about commercializing deep tech, deep research businesses. There are other programs, MIT Sandbox. There's many different academic environments that can help with commercialization. And if you're in school, I recommend everyone to check that out from your universities or others as well, because they can only be growth opportunities.
Yeah, I'll just briefly chime in on this because I don't agree with this. Sorry.
Nice. Finally.
Finally, yeah. So, in my opinion, like a lot of guys here, or girls, they're here, they're really good in technical things. So if you're a researcher and you're really good at whatever it is, if it's AI or whatever, and you want to start a startup, but you're not a sales guy, or you're not like I don't know, outgoing, blah blah blah, just find your co-founder. Just it's really hard to learn it. If you don't have the personality, it's really hard to run the company because you'll get pounded around a lot. So just find a good sales guy to be your co-founder and just lead the way in technical things. It's way, way easier than to go through all that. That's just my...
I disagree with you.
Yeah, sure.
So I think this is the worst piece of advice I've ever gotten from VCs. And what happens with that is they bucket you into, you're a researcher, go back to your hole and work on stuff, right? And let some talking head talk shit to clients. The problem with that talking head is that they don't really know what they're talking about, right? Now, the essential thing at the early bit of a startup is to find that product market fit. Now, if you don't know your product deeply, and I think one unifying thing here is that we all work on really hard problems, and you hear the thread of like, most started as deeply research-oriented companies, and you're looking for a way to probably take at least some of your, probably many technical differentiators and turn that into like an advantage that will create a company, right? So I find this to be like, especially like British VC, like where they're like, and now hire a head of sales who will help you get that 1 million ARR to close your Series A. Well, like if you do that, like you're just burning money, like you're putting it in the furnace and burning it, right? Because unless you yourself are able to adapt and learn and have that conversation, I'm not saying you have to be the one doing that conversation forever, although it tends to happen that way. Then you shouldn't be like a co-founder. You should not go and do that, because then, go and like work at a research lab or something like that. But like you're gonna have to undergo a lot of painful transformation as a founder, and I think that's a piece that's like really important. And like if you can find a co-founder with whom like you've had like a history where you can do it together.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
We kind of go on the same page, honestly.
Yeah, if you have someone with whom you have like a complete alignment that way, then like amazing. Then you're right, and you can probably make progress faster, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't, the other thing, which is hiring a subpar like -1 head of sales, like suicide.
No,
Can I try to find middle ground? So well.
yeah, definitely.
Partially disagree and partially agree. So first of all, I agree that I think salesperson is not what you want. So you need to learn to do things yourself. I think what you need, well, at least person coming from academia, right, like myself, you need to find a person who will understand and help understand as a team how to make money out of your technology or out of your research. So not a salesperson that will be the talking head. You will do a lot of talking yourself. Probably another lesson, well, from failed experiences, try to find people with whom you really enjoy working. Because most chances that you will fail, but at least you will enjoy the ride.
Something I also want to add on this is that the best CEOs of like the most famous technical companies, they're technical founders themselves. And so I think that that's a huge asset that everyone in this room has. Not just for the biggest companies that I know, but also through my founder friends, if I think about it. It is important to have that like strong team, strong co-founder team, also strong early stage team. Agree with doing founder-led sales in the beginning to really deeply understand your market. And if you're starting in like a vertical space, then bringing domain experts is extremely important. And maybe something that's not discussed enough is the important to have really a very strong team of advisors who maybe some represent your customer buyer persona and who can help open doors for you. And that can be truly game-changing, especially if those people come as former executives from big like Fortune 100, Fortune 500 organizations, because they will bring you with them to the room. And as Matej was saying in the previous presentation, you know, enterprise sales can be very hard. They can take a very long time. In the previous generation of software, I've heard stories in which people selling into like big banks and such, it would take maybe like 6 years to close a contract, which is insane. Like as a startup, you don't have 6 years. What we're seeing now with generative AI is that we go from introduction to proposal approved in 2 months. That's the speed at which the world has changed. And so that's what I meant, like really run fast and identify those key individuals that can be your core team of advisors, core team of teammates as well, to really grow as a team. Like,
yeah, I mean that's an interesting observation. I can probably chip in from the investor perspective. Like I've been doing it for long enough to actually remember, like 8 years ago. Like I remember assessing teams of, you know, a CEO, like a domain expert, and a chief marketing officer with an outsourced tech. Like basically that was the state of the ecosystem like several years back. And you know, obviously there were funds who founded who couldn't build comfort around like outsourcing technology, but like that was okay. Like we basically had conversations and like we assessed those teams. Right now we definitely see an advent of like highly technical teams, like all co-founders with tech background, and basically going after super technical products. And like now it is unseen to like outsource any part of the product, especially on the early stages, right? Like later on, like you can probably think about like outsourcing certain kind of parts of it just to speed things up. But yeah, we're just trying to like I guess we are slowly running out of time. We probably have like 20 more minutes, but wanted to kind of ask you about like moats, right? And like how do you think about different like building defensibility and like building an enduring, sustainable business. And we kind of have two perspectives, right? Like, you know, from teams who are more focused on research, the ones who are more focused on like application layer and like productizing the research. And I guess that is one of the biggest questions we ask ourselves, right? Like, will a foundation layer be commoditized down the road, and it's, you know, the margins are gonna contract and it's gonna be difficult to actually like generate margin on one hand side. On the other hand side, you know, like just building a wrapper around you know, GPT-4o or any other state-of-the-art model, you know, like you have to bring something else to the table. And I guess like probably your perspective would be interesting, right? With the rise of GPT-4o, with, you know, a conversational engine, right? That they brought. Like, how do you think about like building a sustainable moat over GPT-4? And
yeah, I mean, like
some told you that he's gonna steamroll you, right?
Well, I mean, sure. No. I mean, like, fun side note on those demos. We've definitely, you know, we've raised rounds and rounds early on just good demos, right? I was looking at like Mira Mirati's face, and she looked like she had palpitations as they were demoing that stuff. What they've done there is they've enabled like barge in, that's very aggressive. We did that recently with a very large enterprise client who was obsessed with like LLM latency, and the containment dropped, the satisfaction dropped, everything went to hell, right? So like, what do you demo to seem, you know, like how a fighter pilot would, I don't know, show around the, you know, 5th generation fighter plane is not necessarily how you want to be driven as a passenger of an airline, right? Now, in terms of technical disruption, again, like what we refer to in our company a lot as a reference is, I don't know if everyone here knows the computer networking stack with its like 7 layers. Like, it's not so black and white, right? Like, did the cloud destroy all enterprise software companies? Absolutely not. Some struggled to go to the cloud, some did it really well. Those that did it better adapted and are now market leaders, right? And those that didn't are slowly fading away and, clutching on to the last customers they have on-prem, right? So I think for us, it's really like LLMs, rather than being a threat, allowed us to build far more complicated systems. They allow you to fail gracefully, to have really good, interesting conversations. But our challenge here is also like a product one in that, we always wanted to just push our technology out there and have people build voice assistants. Because obviously, if you're a platform company, millions can use your platform and you can be a much bigger company, right? Rather than like deploy one by one and then, like you have to chase very large customers who pay a lot of money, which is kind of where we are right now, right? 2-month sales cycles sometimes. I also have banks that took me 3 years. Probably my dearest deals after all that pain is invested into it. But they are accelerating. They're actually getting bigger. Even when they take longer, the contract sizes increase now, which is good. But when you think about like that whole platformization piece, it's like no one's really cracked, in our case, how to give like contact centers a piece of software that they can use to build a kick-ass voice assistant or even a chatbot, right? You hear these dramas like Air Canada got sued over what a chatbot said, and now they that's a precedent in Canadian common law now, right? Or like the new map started fat shaming people, which is really not something that app should be doing, right? DPD, delivery company in the UK, started writing haiku about how they're the worst company, right? So like there have been the early enthusiasm for the ultra builder there, which is who like would reach out their hand all the way to OpenAI and say, I'll work with you and I don't need a PolyAI in between. It's kind of falling flat on its face.
So what is the moat here, like evals and safety, or of the
That's boring.
models, or?
Yes, but it's a lot more than that. It's about how you create like a product, a platform for the user that they know how to use. Because who are the people like prompting LLMs now and doing really cool things, surprising you? A guy like rebuilt Angry Birds with one prompt with GPT-4, right? Like the promise of LLMs was that the fact that they're language-based is going to commoditize, then everyone's going to be doing it. The people, I can't get my wife to do anything with ChatGPT, and she's like very highly educated, and she's just not interested. The people who are interested in pushing LLMs to the limit are the same hackers who were previously writing code to do interesting things, right? So the value chain of how large enterprises will get value out of this, like there's a translation layer in the middle of people who need to create the right product for them, right? And that's kind of how I see us. And of course, like the functionalities of that product, there are many. There's like for us, there's understanding, reasoning, responding, right? The consumer version of it. Our previous company was acquired by Apple, so I spent time at Siri, and like the real thing that OpenAI did there is like, they've launched 3 nuclear missiles at the consumer voice assistants because they've built, as an offshoot of some of their work, probably a better consumer voice assistant than 14,000 people at Alexa, 5,000 people at Google, and about 3,000 at Apple, right? So that's fucking cool. But I think that's the right analogy there. Now, are they providing us, the new cloud where like a company like us can take our product even further? Absolutely, right? But it actually, the edge cases, the really bad failures of LLMs actually necessitate more, not less handcrafting than a traditional intent-based system in the case of conversational AI. And doing that well is actually really hard, which kind of then brings you back to that, how do you provide it as an enterprise product? Well, you're probably going to have to co-develop with your client for quite some time.
Makes sense. Thanks for that perspective. Alex, I would be curious to learn a bit of the Eleven's perspective on from the infrastructure, research perspective. On how do you think about it? And I know that you're involved in plenty of projects that have actually defensibility in mind, right? And building the differentiation over anyone else. So could you maybe talk a bit about it?
Yeah, the question was basically how do we at ElevenLabs think about this question about moats and how to think about the long-term balance between doing research, how to think about defensibility long-term and the balance between doing research and building products and how to win in markets long-term. I mean, I kind of will repeat what I said earlier, which is we start from a conviction that the gap we have in research today will not be around forever. It's just not, it's almost never the case that you maintain that kind of research gap forever. So we do sort of accept this hypothesis that at some point in time, the big cloud providers or OpenAI or whoever it might be are going to have a toolkit of voice AI related things that are probably equivalent to or close to ours. And so the hypothesis has been, what can we do in the meantime to really elbow everybody out of the market and become a generationally large company? And for us, that's like, if you look at our philosophy has been, we go from providing technology and like a box on our website where you can generate audio to providing workflows, so you can start to like use products a bit more, you know, the length of time you spend on the platform goes up, the amount of stuff you're able to do with it in a professional context goes up, and then kind of all the way through to becoming a complete ecosystem of products and content and users, and you know, you build network effects on top of all the stuff that comes before. So for us, it's not rocket science. Like we will still try to keep doing research, at least for the foreseeable future, whatever that's 3-5 years. We're hiring the best researchers on the planet to keep pushing audio as far as we can. But the vast majority of our resources now are going into all of the workflows and ecosystems of content on top of that will really make you valuable at scale. So for us, I would say that's kind of how we look at it for now.
And how do you think about the data itself? Like, do you think it is a sustainable data model you can build, or is that also like, you know, basically a commodity that you know, every well-funded company will catch up on?
Yeah, this question was about data and how much of the research side of things is also just about like data that you need to train models. I mean, for sure, data is a huge component of it, and I don't know how much you guys pay attention to this, but the question of whether AI companies can use data that is out there in different parts of the internet for training their models is very much an open one at the moment. These rulings on fair use won't happen for another year or so, but they're being deliberated on at the highest level. And we sort of approach it from the perspective of, we have our convictions about the status quo, but we also have, you know, we approach it more from like, what can data unlock that we can't currently do? We don't approach it from a, how should we think about this from a legal and regulatory perspective? We approach it from a, can we form partnerships with companies that help us do outstanding new products because of the data that they have? And so I think we think about it more like this, like data is there, it's important, but it's more something to think about of like, what can it unlock and how can it raise the ceiling versus how can I protect myself, right? So that's how we do it. And we are actively, for every different, you know, for all of our products, if it's voices, if it's speech, if it's music, if it's sound effects, we don't talk about these publicly, but we have, you know, a lot of partnerships behind the scenes that help make those products possible.
Super cool.
Something on the moat side that hasn't been mentioned that I think is super important is, so of course, like there's product, there's data in generative AI, and then there's like moat through the business model itself that really, really matters. And so if you're a consumer company, of course, the brand is plays a really big role. In enterprise, your product, your accuracy of responses, ecosystem integrations, all of that plays a huge role. But then the commercial motion can be a moat in itself. And that's where it's super important to understand your customer persona, because there's many different types of enterprise, like B2B SaaS companies. We sell, like we're an HR automation company, we sell into a non-technical customer persona. The sales function, the sales motion and commercial motion is very different for our user persona than if you were to sell into, I don't know, tools for engineers or IT or legal or finance. And so understanding that commercial motions for us is like a lot more of a consultative sale, relationship building, that matters. And so establishing yourself as the leader in that category and everything that has to do with the business model around it really matters. And if you think of the most successful companies, or like very big names, you know, I'm biased, I come from Microsoft. I was in the cloud space. Microsoft didn't always like crush the product, but they are a trillion dollar company plus because they crushed enterprise sales. And so how you do that, like continuously thinking about that, and as a founder, building the team around it, it takes a special type of personality to start a company and to be a founder and to like that grit and hustle. And I think if you're an immigrant, like you have a lot of it already. But you know, being acutely self-aware and filling the gaps on your team so that you scale everything with a very strong foundation is like super important.
Makes.
Can I say a few words about data? I think it's very depressive for us researchers to realize that data trumps algorithms. I think it was a point first made by Alex Wissengross probably about 10 years ago. And if you take all more or less breakthroughs that AI has had, whether it's in vision, in speech, in NLP, maybe more recently in broader scientific fields. So it's been old algorithms on new data sets. And if you look at bio-AI, right, so, or biotech industry where I'm currently mostly working at least commercially, so some of the early companies try to use publicly available data, like important company in the UK, Benevolent AI, so they tried to use NLP techniques to mine literature to extract some insights about potential drug targets. I think it has very limited upside because it's very difficult to defend algorithmic advantages. It's much easier to defend data advantage. So, of course, publicly available data can take us quite far away. I think a good example is AlphaFold. It's all public data from the last 50 years in structural biology. But I think what we see, a trend is that the more successful companies try to produce their own data, and they try to do it initially by scaling existing lab technologies. So I think the big breakthroughs in this field, in my opinion, will come from some kind of confluence of innovation in the wet lab as well as machine learning. And probably it has to move away from standard data sources. So a good example is Recursion, right? So it's a company that scaled cell staining techniques. So it's basically experimental technique that allow you to paint in different different parts of the cell, and then you take microscopy images and you see what happens in the cell. So basically you can image phenotypes. They can take hundreds of millions of these images, and they can already at this scale, they can extract some insights. So this is, I think in the future, what we see, and this is also in my company where I'm involved as a chief scientist, VantAI, we go beyond data that is understandable by human. We call it black box data. So it's a new type of data that makes no sense to a human without appropriate machine learning algorithm. There are many examples in other fields, but I think this is something that is much easier to defend. Basically having unique technology that allows, that gives you a data source on which you can train maybe very smart machine learning algorithms, but even with silly machine learning algorithms, when you have good data, machine learning is easy. So unfortunately for us, right, so obviously I like when the algorithms are smart, but data is more important.
We have some questions from the crowd. Thanks a lot. Like there's a lot of them. But I feel like one question is very relevant to our previous discussion. I would like for Jelena and Đorđe to like probably take it. So for the product companies, what are the biggest challenges you face with user adoption? Why, if are companies hesitant to implement AI? And I would probably add to that, like, do you actually see an AI tailwind when selling products to your customers? Like, do they have any particular special budgets for AI? Is that what you see, or like is the willingness to pay higher when a company comes with an AI as a part of the pitch? So maybe if you could, Jelena.
Of course. As I said, agriculture is a slow domain to take in all of this innovation. And we had that shown to us at many occasions, unfortunately. So actually, the way we started the company was with a B2C business model, where we wanted to take our solution directly to the farmers so they could use it for optimizing their sowing strategies and whatnot. We tried that for some time, but there was a lot of distrust. There was a lot of rejection of this type of technology. They were pretty unsure about how it would all work. They didn't trust it enough. So we decided that the best way to actually reach the market would be to turn to a B2B business model. And then we started working more with companies such as companies that work with seeds, with fertilizers, pesticides, companies that are even like banks and insurance companies. And what this gave us is working with bigger systems who are more interested in implementing this kind of innovation. And so here we started getting those kind of cases that you said, like they have a separate budget exclusively for AI. This is all, I mean, since we're still dealing with agriculture in Serbia, it's still slow and there still isn't that much of AI applied in these companies, but there are really some pioneers that that want to like be at the forefront of the innovation. So it has been a really big problem in the start, but I think that we're getting to a place where it's much more trustworthy, and now also we as a company have enough examples of tried and true solutions, so that even for the ones who don't believe in our solutions, it's easier for them to gain some kind of a trust when we show them exactly how this works on their fields or their use cases. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll answer on our side. So we're selling to airports, or in our case, like something that's a big company or whatever, big organization. So for us, like, having AI is not an important thing at all. Like for them, for us, it was more on how to merge accessibility with profit. And once you gain that through a business model, once we were able to not be an expense and actually a revenue generator, that's what propelled us to the next level, I would say. So I would invite somebody else to answer this, maybe Michael, Anna, whatever. So for me, AI doesn't help. It's more of a value proposition.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Anna?
Sure. For our buyers, I'm not seeing specific budgets allocated for AI, although I know there are experimentation budgets, especially for large enterprises, because they need to experiment with new products in order to stay relevant. You know, there are products that are offered right now in AI, and we can talk about coming up with something super strategic that's going to change the world. As a founder, I think it's also really important to find your wedge and then to find an opportunity to expand so that you take as much of that market as possible. And yeah, think of the value prop. So for us, we help our companies with OpEx efficiencies, and that's the background, that's the founder market fit as well, because that's what we were doing at Microsoft. At Microsoft, I saw how we had armies of engineers, and I kind of mean it. We were more than 800 people who are all focused on efficiency and optimization for cloud costs. And so that really matters for public companies, right? Like your margins are important. And if you help companies increase OpEx efficiency, then it's a huge win for them. And so, yeah, you can be, if you're on the revenue generator path, then that's awesome. The customer support space is fairly crowded as a market. So maybe like be aware of choosing the specific vertical that if you're thinking about that space. For us, like HR is like a non-technical HR automation. Like we're selling into a customer persona that's not technical. And sometimes I'm hearing from our customers, it's the first time I'm purchasing software, which just blows our mind. Like we're going straight from services into skipping the whole website building part and apps building part and like jumping straight into AI.
Yeah, maybe just one thing to add. I would actually say more often than not, AI tends to be obsessing over the AI aspect of something tends to be more of a friction in deals than an accelerator, right? Like what customers, and especially large customers, typically what they want is a result. They want a solution. They have a problem they need fixed. And if you fix it with AI or you fix it with something else, they don't really care. Whatever, you fix it in the best way, and hopefully for them, you fix it as cheaply as possible. So I would say the AI aspect, it's not, you don't want to just hammer that to death, right? Because it can slow you down. I would say there's the only case, the flip side of that is, yeah, sometimes if you're talking to somebody inside large companies who's, a director of innovation or somebody who's like going to get promoted if they sign a big contract with an AI company, sure. But more often than not, like enterprise sales is about results, it's not about technology. Right?
Yeah. So I'd like to double click on the question that we got asked.
So what are the biggest challenges for Eleven in the process? Like when you talk to an enterprise, like what creates friction?
Yeah, the question was like, what the biggest challenge? If like, what are the biggest challenges for us as a company selling to large enterprise?
Yeah, that you face with user adoption, right? So, like,
yeah.
and go-to-market motion.
Yeah, so some of them are like largely technical. So there are some industries like in the conversational AI space. You know, we have certain boxes we have to check to be relevant on the market. We have to have low latency. We have to have, you know, stability of different languages and accents. There are things where we do have to keep working hard to kind of check technical boxes. But I think the biggest, far and away, the biggest challenge for us selling to these very large companies is not specific to AI in any way. It's just large, slow enterprise sales cycles, and especially when you're throwing AI into the mix where people are concerned about how is the model trained. How is it going to behave for people? How am I going to be perceived by other companies in the industry for jumping on the AI ship? I think this and just working with, you know, traditional enterprise sales process that now has this extra piece of complexity from AI, that's definitely the biggest challenge.
And especially if you're selling to a non-tech person. Sorry. Yeah, and especially I would agree, like especially if you're selling to a non-tech person, they're going to be probably going to be afraid of like, is it going to work? How good is it? Because, you know, like my mom is a professor at veterinary medicine. She doesn't know anything about AI. If I were to show her how ChatGPT works, she would be like, "Oh, look at that." You know, even though you're selling like to a super educated person or who's super good at their job, if they're not technical, they just won't know. So it makes it harder, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's like back to what you said, it's the value prop, right? Either they have a problem, and this is like startup basics. Either they have a problem and you can fix that problem, and at that point, how you do it, it really doesn't matter. I think there are like the dark arts of like, mostly by the Microsofts of the world and stuff, where they're increasing their commits with people because, oh my God, you're going to do so much AI, and then it's a sell to IT. I mean, broadly, when you think about B2B sales, you're either selling to the business or you're selling to like IT, like the CIO persona. Now, if you're selling them technology that then needs to be used onward, you may actually get a sell but no usage, right? And then you churn later, right? But if you're selling to the business, then really telling them that you have like the best model or trying to prove it, like they know that they're not in a position to decide whether that's right or wrong. They don't want to know. You shouldn't take them there, because if you do, they're going to have to go to IT, and then you introduce friction.
Guys, I guess, unfortunately, I guess we have to run. Peter is kicking us out. I'm kidding, man, no worries. But yeah, there's plenty of super interesting questions at Slido, and it's too bad we cannot cover them. But feel free to ask those questions over lunch. You know, I guess we'll be here. So yeah, thank you so much.